welcome to the Think Generational Wealth Podcast, and this is episode number 100. I actually want to make a correction. I think last week I may have said this was actually episode 100, but in reality it was episode 99, so I apologize for any confusion. But this is the 100th episode of this podcast. And to be honest with you, I am so appreciative of anybody just taking the time to listen to this podcast episode. It is so appreciative that you can just take your time to listen to this, and hopefully this is great content for you. First of all, I'd like to say like and subscribe to the podcast if you enjoy the content. It's much appreciative. It'll only help get this message out about financial literacy. Also, if you get a chance, you enjoy the content again, like and subscribe to the podcast, share this content. And I'd like some feedback. So this is the 100th episode of this podcast. I never thought I'd make it this far. And I know there are people that start this and journey and they quit because it's not easy. And there's a lot of things I realize in life. Doesn't matter. The things that are hard, people are going to quit. So you got to find sometime what are those hard things that you know. I remember, not to get too off topic, but just to share a quick story. I remember when I was switching into different industries, and I was going from the retail sector, going into IT. And I remember I started a class in IT school, and there's 50 of us that started. Do you know how many were remaining after a year? Only 7 students. So that means 43 people quit for whatever reason. So just like in anything in life, business, podcast, whatever, everybody can have a podcast, but not everybody's going to go through this and do this all the time because this takes time, it takes energy. And I enjoy doing this podcast, not because I'm looking to grow this big tribe of people. I don't mind having the downloads I have. The thing is for me is as long as whenever you listen to this podcast, you take action. Hopefully, I'm providing actionable steps, and that's what I want to do this year. Not only just for you, but for me too. So this has been a great journey. I've started this podcast about 3 years ago, and the end of this year will be 4 years on this podcast, I think. If I'm not mistaken, I may be a little bit off. Maybe it is 3 years. But I'm going to keep at it. I'm not going to quit. I'm going to keep at it. I'm going to keep going. It took Joe Rogan 10 years to make $100 million. And his podcast gets gazillion million downloads an episode, not a week or a month, an episode. He gets over 4 or 5 million downloads. I'm not saying I want to be a Joe Rogan, but just saying that whatever you do in life, find what's hard because people are not going to stick to it. So hopefully that's a word of the day. And today's episode I'm going to first say this. This is not an anti-Semitic episode. This is an episode of, I got a chance to listen to another podcast, which is a great idea. And I got a chance to listen to this gentleman. And I think this would be beneficial. Maybe if you want to listen to the podcast I'm talking about, Black Entrepreneur Blueprint by Jay Jones. But if you listen to this podcast, hopefully this is value. And what I mean by that is, let's start with about probably maybe what we say about 4 or 5 months ago, Kanye West came out, made some comments regarding the Jewish community, right? And ever since then, I've actually started doing some research about what makes them successful. And one thing I honestly say is that for us, and today's episode is going to be directly to my culture. And whoever you listen to this podcast, you may not be black. If you're not black, that's fine. But if you have a small town or pueblo, like they say in Spanish, this episode could be valuable to you too, no matter what. What I'm saying is that the Jewish community really, the way they dominate business is amazing. And we can sit here and say, well, we as African Americans or black people, whatever, we got the short end of the stick, or we started late. And probably right. Whatever response is probably right. But it doesn't excuse the fact that when Kanye brought it up, it only made me think to see and start to see what they were doing. Because what they're doing is successful. So I got a chance to check out this YouTube video, and it's from a gentleman by the name of Berel. I think let me see the name. Berel Solomon, and he has over 112,000 subscribers on YouTube, and he shares 10 business secrets of the Jewish community. So what we can do as Black people, we as African Americans, we as whatever you call yourself, but you have that African descent, we can learn from this. Because one thing I'm gonna tell you right now, one thing that really sometimes it makes me feel sorry, and it makes me sometimes I want to say give up hope, but I don't want to say that, to be honest with you. But you feel that way at times, right? And when you just see how bad our culture have, whether it's the music, whether it's the style, the things we do, and the things that we do that has no value. I got a chance to see this guy the other day on Instagram. He was holding stacks of money. And I had to think for myself, I don't see Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, any of these rich guys doing that. They don't care about the flex. But for us as our community, we care about that stuff. We want to show people what we have, and that's okay. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to share this podcast, this YouTube with you guys, and I'm going to come back to it. And then hopefully I can provide some actionable steps of what we can do to help elevate our community, because we need to do better than this. And instead of saying, well, the Jews and all this, blah, blah, let's get away from that. Let's see what they're doing and maybe emulate what they do, because what they do works. What we do don't work. So this is a great opportunity for us to learn from other cultures. That's why the thing about me, I like to travel, but I like to go to places that I don't really like. I like traveling in the U.S., but not as much, to be honest with you. At the same time, I like traveling international even more because I like to experience different cultures, languages, dialect, all that stuff. And you get to learn a lot. And I think this episode today is what you will get to learn from this YouTube video. Okay? All right. I'm going to go ahead and play the recording for you, and then I'll get right back to it.
So the whole world keeps on talking about how Jewish people are great at business. And, instead of fighting it, instead of calling that anti-Semitic, I'm going to go in the opposite direction, and I'm just going to own it. If everybody is saying that, then it must be true. So I, as a Orthodox Jewish person, would love to share with you some Jewish business secrets, 10, actually my top 10 Jewish business secrets. And I hope that you're going to enjoy them. This is great stuff. This is stuff that we've known for thousands of years, and I think that you're really going to appreciate it. And by the way, if you're here to hate, just go somewhere else. This is about love. This is about education. This is about growing. And go take your hate somewhere else. You're not welcome here. But for everybody else that genuinely wants to learn, genuinely wants to grow, I think you're going to get a ton of value. So let's just jump right in. So number one Jewish business secret is we actually have a commandment to teach our children how to earn a living. There's actually two things you have a commandment to. Teach your child how to earn a living and teach your child how to swim, believe it or not. And they're kind of related if you think about it. So it says that if you don't teach your child how to earn a living, it's as if you're teaching them how to steal, because if they don't know how to earn a living, then their only other way to make money is through theft. So teach your children. Fathers have a commandment to teach their sons, to teach their children how to make a living. And that's number one. Number two, you have to be honest in all of your business dealings. Now, I know there's some haters here that are going to start talking about how Jewish people this and Jewish people that in business. But look, you don't get to be in business for thousands of years, and you don't get to top industries for no reason. And there's only so long that a person could be dishonest until finally it catches up with them. So honesty is something huge. As a matter of fact, in the Old Testament, in the Bible, it says that you have to have honest weights. You know, it used to be in the market, people had different weights to weigh their grain. You cannot have a weight that is incorrect. You must be honest in all your business dealings. The first thing that they ask you in heaven when you go there is, were you honest in your business dealings? Number 3 is to have a general positive relationship with money. A lot of people think that money is the root of all evil, or money causes all the bad things in the world to happen. The Jewish approach to money is actually very positive and very healthy. We believe that money is a tool to use to build communities, to build family, to build institutions. We believe that there's a very positive relationship with it, instead of looking at it as something that is wrong or something that is dirty or something that we don't talk about. The opposite. We embrace it. We have an extremely positive relationship with it. Number 4, we help our community. You know, this is something that people talk about that they don't like about the Jewish community. Well, I have other friends, by the way, from different communities, and they tell me that they literally try to destroy each other when it comes to business. They're not happy to see each other succeed. The Jewish community takes the opposite approach. We try our best to support each other. We try our best to help each other as much as we can. And you might say, hey, that's not fair, but you have to understand, we're a family. Just like you're a community, you're a family with your community. Try helping your community and see how much more you guys will take off together, and how much you guys will succeed with each other. Number 5, we give at least 10% of our earnings to charity. So that means that the more successful a person becomes, usually what happens in the world is the more their ego gets a hold of them and the more money hungry they get. In our community, we give charity in order, A, to stay humble, and B, it encourages us to make even more than we need. If a person doesn't give charity, technically you can make what you need, and then you could relax the rest of the day. One of the big motivations for us is to give charity. So there's no limit to how much we can make, because even if we are satiated, we try to make more in order to give more charity. Number 6, it's preferable to be an owner than to be a worker. You know, it says in the Bible that when there's a Hebrew slave that works for a master, and they work for them for 7 years, and they want to continue working for that master, at the end of 7 years, they actually used to take a nail and put it through his ear and put it into the door. Why? Because it reminds the person that really a person should only be working for God, and only God should be their master. It is preferable to be an owner, to be a boss, than to be a worker. Number 7, don't do to other people what you wouldn't want done to you. In other words, the world calls it karma, but as a real business secret. When you treat others with respect, and when you treat others properly, and you don't do to them what you wouldn't want done to you, that will come back to you full circle. Number 8, you keep 1/3 of your money in cash, 1/3 of your money in real estate, and 1/3 of your money in inventory. That way, if something happens to any one of your income streams, God forbid, you're hedged and you're protected. Number 9, we take 1 day off from work every single week. That means no emails, no phone calls, not even thinking or speaking about work. And that day for us is called Shabbat, the Sabbath. That's a day where we recharge, where we rejuvenate, where we don't involve ourselves in business. So that way, when Sunday and Monday morning comes, we are ready to hit the ground with a vigor because we had a chance to have some downtime. And number 10, probably the most important of all, on the American dollar bill, it says the beautiful words, "In God we trust." So at the core of our business dealings, we trust God. We trust God that He's going to give us success. That's why we're not afraid to take calculated risks, because we understand that we are not part of a random cosmic cycle that you could be burned at any given time. No, we trust that there is a creator of the universe. We trust that He will reward us if we try our hardest. He will reward the work of our hands. And when we go out into our work, we trust that God will bless us, and this gives us confidence to keep on growing. I hope you enjoyed this video. I know it's definitely a different spin on the whole narrative. If you did enjoy it, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, leave me a comment. If you loved the video, leave me a comment. If you hated the video, leave me a comment. I would love to hear from you guys. God bless you, and thank you for spending this time with me. I wish you a lot of success in all of your business dealings. God bless.
Okay, hopefully that episode was of that YouTube video episode. That YouTube video that you just listened to starring Berel Solomon. Again, you can check out his YouTube, look for him. It's called The 10 Secrets of Jewish Business, The 10 Business Secret of the Jewish Community, or 10 Secrets of the Jews, something to that nature. So you guys can check it out. Um, but number one, let's go real quick. Let's tap into what he talked about. Number one, have a commitment. Teach your child or children how to earn a living. So, the other day I was actually having a conversation with my 16-year-old. And one thing I've been trying to tell her for the longest is I've been trying to really talk her into entrepreneurship and saying, hey, you are really good. You're young. These kids today, they're really good with stuff like TikTok. There's a lot of businesses that are struggling to open or to market on social media. This would be a good avenue that you could come in and add some value. Well, it's basically falling on deaf ears. So I say, okay, well, you don't want to do that, then maybe just go get a job. I don't want her to go get a job, to be honest with you. I'd rather her learn how to make her own money because at the end of the day, that's what you're going to have to learn. Like he said, that's a commandment. Fathers, that is their commandment to teach their children how to earn a living. Because if you don't, it's basically like stealing. Number two, to be honest, in all your business dealings. And he even mentioned, he said, well, there's this thing about business, Jewish people and whatever. But at the end of the day, you have to be honest because it's karma. I don't know if anybody believes in karma, but I do. If you don't want something done to you, then don't do it to others. Number three, have a positive relationship with money. This is critical, especially in our society today, our culture. We are bad with money. We are terrible with money. And we are probably one of the leading cultures or race or whatever you want to say in debt because we are so terrible with money. We'd rather floss and spend money on things we don't need. They're not doing that. They're not doing that at all. Number four, help your community. Now, I'm from a small town called Fort Myers, Florida. And one thing, every time I go to to the city, I can't, I don't like is I'll go there and I'm jabbing around. There's all these, and I'm talking about Haitian because I'm Haitian, and this is what I noticed in our community is that first of all, that the city of Fort Myers itself only has about 100, maybe 40, 50,000 people that stays there, and it's a small city. And to be quite candid, for this city to have that many different churches sometimes shocks me. I find it mind-boggling because how many of that instead of putting our heads together, why not put our heads together instead of just saying, okay, you know what? Let me go open all these Haitian churches, or let me go open my own Haitian, or let me go open my own church. To the point that some of these churches, they're congregating the congregation in the church is actually in someone's residence. And that's crazy. And then you have a church down the road that actually is a church. So why couldn't those churches put their heads together and help the community? They help each other. I remember I was telling my wife, I was pointing something out to her. We went to go get a massage in this strip. And then one thing I'm a very observant person. So one thing I noticed was in that strip, they had the massage parlor. They had this is the Asians. They had a massage parlor. They had a if you wanted a restaurant, you wanted food. It was right next. All you had to do was go right there. If you wanted tea, guess what? It was right there too. It was all Asian people. To the point, there's a part where I stayed in Dallas, Texas. where you can go and it's predominantly Asian, all Asian businesses. And it's so crazy because I was telling my wife that, and she's like, you know what, honey, I never thought about that. And then now in the suburbs, one of the suburbs I stayed, they just opened up a nail salon. In the nail salon, guess what's there in that plaza? The nail salon, Asian owned. The restaurant that's next to it, Asian owned. They have actually a chiropractor in that same Asian owned. All Asian owned. And it's crazy because you don't see that too many in the black community. We are just too busy. We're trying to compete with each other, stealing each other's ideas. It's just mind boggling to me at times of why we just can't work together. Number five, 10% of earnings to charity. So this is how they keep the money circulating in the community because 10% of their money goes into charity. Now, some of us here were not, for one, I haven't been to church, God knows how long, so I'll be the first to admit that. But I consider myself a spiritual person, but I do tie to a church. And they give 10% of their earnings to charity. So that money is still circulating in the community. So not only you're helping your community, now you're giving 10% money to help charity to help grow. So could you imagine if such and such who owns a car dealer, he's Jewish and he owns a car dealer, and he's giving money to he's giving charity. What do you think that charity is going to do? They're going to praise him. They're going to, when they get clients or people, they're going to send them to him, to his car. When they want to buy cars, who benefits from that? The entire community benefits from this. Okay. Number six, preferable to be an owner than to be a worker. It says that if you are somebody's worker, you only God is your master. This was very intriguing to me. This part right here was very intriguing to me because it was just like I felt the same way. I felt, man, I don't have I have a business, but the business is not going where it needs to be yet. But you know what? It's better to be an owner. Only God is your master. I've talked about this in previous episode of the podcast. It is better for us to start our own business. Like I talked about this with Kanye West in like a couple of episodes back, right? And Kanye West lost all these endorsements and all these deals. But you know what? He could actually get back on his feet quicker than he thinks because he can go and start his own brand, his own business. Cut out Adidas. You now can do direct to consumer. He can actually do direct sales to consumer. Have a website where he has his own products, his own shoes, and then he can go on there, advertise shoes, and people can actually go on the website and buy it. I bought 3 pair of shoes most recent, Reebok, Puma, and Under Armour. And it's the same thing. I just go on their website. I don't have to go to Finish Line. I don't have to go to Foot Locker. I can just go directly to their website, order the shoes, and it was sent right to me. He could do the same thing. Like I was saying about my daughter, I don't want her to learn how to be a worker. I want her to learn how to make her own money and learn how to be able to come up, be creative. Because I know she's a smart girl, but sometimes that's not what the kid want, or even maybe it's just not what they want at this moment. So you can't force them. You just have to let them be, let them grow, let them find their way into life. Okay. Number seven, karma. Treat others with respect. You know, I thought about doing this episode. When I thought about doing this episode, I almost was like, man, I don't know the backlash of who's going to think what. But I'm not coming from any position to where I don't respect or I don't appreciate what I see in this community. Is what I really do appreciate is there's a togetherness. And that's what lacking in our community is the togetherness. And it's because they all treat each other with respect. Everybody respects everyone. Could you imagine if that same car dealer, the guy who owned the car dealer, didn't treat a customer or Jewish customer with respect? His name would be blasted throughout the whole community. And now, all of a sudden, there you go. Business is not, but they don't do that to each other. They respect each other. We should do the same thing in our community. I think about these recent rapper deaths. It's been crazy because, for one, when you become, they say now rapper is the most dangerous occupation in the world. And it probably is, right? Because the longevity that in longevity in this career is not very long at all. So for me is instead of just hating on this brother, but at the same time, my brother shouldn't be on Instagram or Facebook, whatever, TikTok, flexing dollars of bills. I should be able to go and talk to my brother and be like, my brother. And B, remember the rule number 3, be honest in all your dealings. Instead of just trying to steal money from him, teach him how to save that money, invest that money. Because your rap career is as short as a leprechaun, so they say, right? Because you're hot today, but you're not hot tomorrow. How many of these athletes, rappers, you hear that they make all this money and it's gone. And it's only gone because they don't sometimes have anyone that can show them. What if we had more black advisors, more financial advisors that were trustworthy and ethical. Now they have to be trustworthy and they gotta be ethical. Okay? So that's very good because now we can teach these brothers when they have money not to just go blow it and splurge it. Take that money and put it into investments. Okay. Which is we're going to number 8. Now there was one of these. I wish he kind of elaborated a little bit more, which I understand, but just due to the timing, it says number 8. They put their money 1/3 in cash, 1/3 in real estate, and 1/3 in inventory. So inventory, I wish he kind of dived in a little bit more into that. But again, that's how rich people get rich. You gotta own cash. You can't have all your money in cash, but you gotta have some cash on hand. You gotta have money in real estate, on properties, or whatever, and you gotta have 1/3 inventory. Now, there is a scripture in the Bible. I think it was in Matthew. It talks about your person you borrow money from is your master. This goes back to what I was talking about, number 6, right? Is you want, let's say, whoever you owe debt to, whether it's mortgage, car note, credit cards, they're your master. So it's very hard for you to grow wealth if you're not putting your money in any of these 3. Okay. Number 9, take one day off from work. They take one day off, which is Sunday. So their religion, and another thing I respect out of the Jewish culture is they are very, very, very religious. They put God, and that was one thing he said in number 10. He said they put God in everything, and God they trust. I know, maybe if you listen to this podcast, you're not Christian, that's okay. But, I'm a firm believer that everybody should have something they believe in. If you believe in nothing, hey, no, don't take this personal. This is not anything to make. But what I'm saying is take a day off to rest. I realize how much important that is because even for me, there's times on the weekends, I'm just like, on a Sunday, I'll just cook for the family and then that's it. And then that's mostly family time. And if not, that's like if I'm watching football or something, or that's time for me and my family to relax, to recharge, and be ready for the week. Okay? So you need that one day to relax. Number 10, God we trust. Again, if you're not Christian, please don't take this offensive, but they put God in everything they do. Everything. So that's why they're not worried because they believe God is who is their master, is the one who is leading everything. Okay? So that's very important too for number 10. And that's something I'm learning to do for myself is instead of just making a decision, hey, let me see what God thinks. Let's put this in God's hands. Okay? Because God knows everything. He does. So if you have a business deal or whatever you're trying to do, go and talk to God first. Okay? So again, these were the 10 business These are the 10 Jewish business secrets. Okay, so you can check this out on YouTube. Be open minded. Don't go in there and listening to it without having an open mind. Be very open minded when it comes to listening to this episode. So now we say, okay, what can we do to help each other? Number one, let's start with listening. First of all, we got to listen to each other. We don't do that very well at all. And we don't do the listen thing. Have you ever talked to somebody and you're in the middle of a conversation, you're telling them something, and they're like, mm-hmm. In reality, they're thinking about what they're going to tell you. They're thinking of a response. Stephen Covey says in his book, The 7 Habits of Effective People, highly effective people, he says, first you must understand, then to be understood. You have to listen. And that all goes down to listening to each other. Number 2, let's create a culture. I'm really pushing for this financial literacy. I am, because I believe this is my calling. And it's not only just for me coming on this podcast and telling you, this is for my growth too. I can learn from this. You can learn from this. We all can learn from this. The second thing we must do is we must not only one communicate and listen. Number 2, we must work together. It's not going to happen. It's not going to happen if we don't work together. Number 3, support each other. Do we do that? We don't support each other. And that's the sad thing about it is, you'll have an establishment, let's say Chick-fil-A, right? And you have another establishment like, I don't know, a black-owned one, or even Haitian. I don't know how many times in the Haitian community. And sometimes that all goes to, right, with people being ethical in their business dealing. And that happens. That happens. Someone come in, they're not ethical, and that's it, right? But we don't give them a chance after that. And I understand why. Don't get me wrong. I get it. And I understand someone, like, for example, I know there was a guy who was out in that same county, in Lee County. He was going around different churches telling them to invest in his projects. Come to find out, he never had any projects. They were investing in him, but they were investing in his bank account. That's what they were doing. But how many of those are out there? And they're only out there because we don't properly vet them, number one, right? And we take them for their word. And I guarantee you, if you have the thing about it, let's say Chick-fil-A, right? Chick-fil-A can do, but we still over at Chick-fil-A. What I'm saying is that we need more of the people that are those are people we just need to weed out of our community. And Karma caught him. Now he's arrested. He has to pay all this money back. He had over $1 million that he scammed from people. But you know the thing is, this was the same investment I was told about, and it didn't sound. If I'm going to invest in something and I come to you can't explain it, forget it. I'm not investing in it at all. But for some reason, and these are people with their hard-earned money that he stole. But I guarantee you that he was not properly vetted, number one. And number 2 is that we are not educated enough. So if someone comes in and tells us information, we don't go and do our own homework. We just say, just take it for what their word is. And you can't do that at all. You cannot do that. Okay? So that's what we need to do. Collaborate. We have to collaborate because if we don't collaborate, that's what's going to happen. If Joe Schmo down the road has a business and I know him and I went to school with him and all this and I know he's a good guy, we go to the same church, yada, yada, I should be able to refer people to Joe. It's only going to help our community get bigger and stronger. So when you have those bad apples that are scamming people, those bad apples will get weed out. They will get weed out. Eventually, the people that are actually here who are here for good reason and are here because that's what they want to do, those people will move more to the forefront. They will come more. They will have. There will be more light spread up. There will be more light illuminating on them than someone like that. But you know what? I'd rather, in my opinion, and this is for me, I'd rather learn from a lesson like that and understand that, you know what? I'm not going to do this to people. I can't do this to them. Okay? So we got to do that. We have to be able to teach our kids early about financial literacy. We have to be able to teach them if they have $1, not to take that dollar and go buy it and spend it. I have a 16-year-old. We're having conversations daily. Hey, what's going on? What you learning? Because by the time she's 18, she'll be close to out of my house. But I don't want her to go out in this world and not understand how money works. You got to be able to understand how money works. You got to be able to understand how to budget. You got to be able to understand how to educate yourself. You got to be able to understand these things. But it starts with the parents teaching. We cannot rely on educational public schools to teach our kids about this. Even though they're trying now, they are trying, I'll give them credit, but that can't be the only thing we rely on. And if you're bad with money as a parent, you need to correct that. Just like even me, I cannot go talk to my daughter about financial literacy and I don't have my stuff in order. It has to be. So that's number 4. Number 5, what can we do? Be ethical. Let's stop hating on each other. Let's push each other. Let's push you. You know what? I don't want to have a business and all of a sudden my best friend all of a sudden wants a discount. Because when you go to those other establishment, corporate owned establishment, you're not asking for a discount. Let's be ethical with each other. Let's respect, understand each other. Because if we don't do these things, how can we push each other and grow? How can we be like the Jewish culture? How can we be like the Asian culture? How can we be like the Indian culture? They support each other. We don't do that. So, and when we do deal with each other, it's unethically. So then you know what happens? We don't keep our money in our community. We go spend it somewhere else. Well, you see that guy, he did me wrong. Such and such did me wrong. See what I'm saying? We got to be able to help each other. We got to be able to be ethical with each other, not just push each other down. Lift each other up. If you got a friend that has a business, support him. I'm going to do this more often. I'm going to make this a conscious effort. Now, there are some disadvantages. Now, I do live in a city where probably the nearest black owned food restaurant, for example, it's 30, 40 minutes away from me. But whenever I get around that city, especially in Dallas, Texas, I always try to make it a conscious effort to support black owned businesses. Even though I'm far away, but when I get around that city in Dallas, Texas, I try to make that an effort. Because that's the only way, if we don't support each other, what do we have? And I think that's why I thought this was pivotal. And when he shared this information, it really had me thinking. It really did have me thinking. I hope this episode is having you thinking. And again, this is coming from a position of education. We're trying to help each other grow. But we cannot help each other grow if we are constantly putting each other down. And when we do deal with each other, it's not ethically. Okay? So these are the 5 tips I wanted to share with you guys. Hopefully, again, this is of value to you. This podcast was brought to you by American Financial. Again, American Financial is here. We are here to eradicate. Our goal is to eradicate financial illiteracy. Okay? Until then, much love, much appreciation. See you next week.